For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and welcome to episode 6 of the Brian Cole story. Brian, welcome back.
Yeah, well, good to always be here.
Oh yeah, last week. So obviously we watched these, not obviously, but I've stated before that our family watches all these, wife and I and the kids in the last one. So they sit in front of the computer, with our speakers and everything, and then Drew and I sit behind them like a movie theater when we're watching these shows. And this last one, last week's episode 5. By the way, if anyone wants to go and watch the other ones, just go to it's the easiest place to go is just to our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search DrydenWire. We have a playlist just for the Brian Cole story. But this last one was interesting because we sit behind the kids, and I can't tell you how many times both of our kids, when listening to some of the stories you were, telling and where you were in your life at the time, kept turning around, looking at us like, what? What just happened? Are you? And I'm learning a lot because I've known you for a long time. But 85% of this stuff I did not know. Have you experienced that before we kind of get going into episode 6 here so far? Have you had people that are watching these that say, man, I've known you for a long time, but I didn't know a lot of this stuff?
Yeah, I haven't had that. I guess the one guy who I sent you a copy of the message to, he was one of my 2 friends in the past. His name is Kevin. And Kevin and Steve were the only, I guess, friends that I had back in the day, and Kevin had said something about, yeah, man, I didn't know a lot of this about you.
Wow. So we left off. You had just gotten out of your first prison sentence, nearly 10 years, and now you are Milwaukee.
Yep.
Well, let's pick it up right from there. You walk out of prison. Who picks you up, and where do you go?
Yeah. So the camp master and mastress of the ISIS Neptus camp in Milwaukee, where I paroled out to pick me up, and I lived with them. Up on the south side of Milwaukee, nicer area. Never really been in Milwaukee before. So that was their temple. The basement was all decked out. It was the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis camp there. And so, yeah, I was there. I think I was only there for about 6 months, maybe. It was cool because, I finally was out of prison. I was finally able to be initiated into the OTO. So I went through the Minerval initiation and then the first degree initiation. Got hooked up with a whole bunch of other people from other camps and other occult sects in town and satanic sects and tantric sex camps and all this other stuff. So meeting all these people, doing a lot of acid, LSD and stuff, because at this point when I was getting out, they were P-testing me a lot because I had a history of drugs. And back in that day, they used to actually go in the bathroom and watch you pee, so you couldn't, like you can now, hide pee in your pants and clean pee and squirt it out of a bottle. But so I was doing a lot of acid because they can't really check for that unless they do hair follicle tests or whatever, and they usually didn't spend the money on doing that. So almost right away, I got a job. I did during that time in Green Bay, I went through, I think, 3 different programs, technical college programs when they still had them. I did the auto mechanics, I did the painting and decorating, and the printing industries. So part of the painting and decorating and the auto mech, you got welding experience. So I had a welding certificate. So I got a job. My first job was welding for Badger State Industries or something like that it was called. And but I think it was colder or something when I was out. And it was in these wide open steel buildings, and we were in there welding. And I think I was only on that job a week when I quit. And I'm like, I ain't doing this, man. Ended up getting a job at a popular place, I think, in Milwaukee. I don't know about now, but back then it was Mr. P's Tire Store. And I think there was like 8 of them in the Milwaukee area when I was there. Now, Mr. P, ex-mafia guy. So I'm sure that there was some detrimental things going on at the tire stores and stuff because you don't really ever come out of that. And I met P twice, and he was actually a friend of the camp master Sharon, where I was living at, and she hooked me up with him. But so I worked that job most of the time that I was there, and just doing the temple stuff and meeting with all these people and doing acid and doing rituals all the time. And meeting other people that are coming from other camps and stuff from other areas. But it got to the point where I was so prideful and full of myself with the things that I knew and that I learned all those years in prison, all the memorization that I had. I pretty much memorized all these rituals and stuff. And these guys, when they're doing these rituals, they're down there reading them off paper. And, it's like, so I'm so full of myself. I'm like, I'm too good for this. I'm way beyond these guys. They might be, the camp mistress and her boyfriend that lived there were, I think, 4th degree. And I'm like, I'm so far beyond them. And these people are reading off paper and all this and that. So I made the decision to move back to my hometown in Chippewa and get the heck out of Milwaukee. Plus that, I did not like Milwaukee at all. It
Why?
was like too many people, too impersonal. Even back then, that was 1993. Even back then, you'd make phone calls to businesses and stuff, and it'd go right to recordings and stuff. You never got anybody. And where I worked at Mr. Peace Tire was down on Fifth and National. And even though I can't have guns and stuff, I carried knives with me all the time because that was like really bad area, So I just didn't want to be around there, man. And I was too good for the people at the temple, so I made the decision to move back to Chippewa.
All right, hold on a second. So that's a couple things here. One, this is what you've been looking forward to, is
Yep.
living in Milwaukee and amongst these people. And you're saying that you're kind of just a little bit too. I'm smarter than these people.
Better than them.
Sure, but some of these people, aren't they like the high ups?
Well, 4th degree, not really high up. No, the higher ups pretty much live up in California and all that.
Okie dokie. Second, you had talked about, doing acid, and then you had a job for a little bit, and this other job for a little. What do you do? How do you pay for drugs? Is that just kind of given to you? How are you?
Yeah.
How are you living? You got to have money. Like, I didn't like that job after a week. I quit. Well, anytime I'd quit a job, I'm kind of screwed because landlords like rent and food, and
I'm living with these people. They're taking care of me, and so I really didn't have.
Where
much
do the
to worry
drugs come
about.
from?
Mostly, there's, two of the things that you can have expectations of, whether they say it or not, in these OTO temples and stuff, is drugs and sex. It's there.
Well, that kind of totally makes sense now I think about it. Because at first I'm like, what? Who would actually provide? Oh, wait, who are we talking about?
Right.
Okay.
That's
stupid on my part.
It's part of the religion.
Yeah, that's...
Take wine and strange drugs and be happy thereby. That's part of the holy books.
Well, and I'm sure that helps get a lot of members.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so now you've moved up to back to Chippewa Falls, about 93, and this is about, 6 months, a year after?
Yeah, about 6 to 8 months, something like that.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
So I moved back and I didn't play stay. So my brother, I moved in with my brother and his girlfriend at the time, and started working some. And it was the same thing there with the PO. They were P testing me all the time. So just pretty much taking acid and peyote and stuff like that on weekends. I ended up also using my degree from prison in the printing industry, and I started working some print jobs, which I really liked, but I was robbing them blind. It's the one print job I had, the owner owned, I think it was 5 Model A or Model T cars or something, and me and my brother, we told him, hey, we love doing auto work and stuff, so he gave us one of the Model A's to work on, and we totally disassembled that thing, and we were sandblasting it and working on it, and then we just gave up on it one day. And so just in and out of these places, robbing them blind. Because I'm working in a print shop, I'm still continuing like I did in Kettle Moraine. I'm printing up these magazines per se, or newsletters, whatever you want to call them, for our. I started my own camp right away, called the Tower of High Sorcery Camp.
Tower of what?
And the Tower of High Sorcery Camp.
Oh.
And it was basically a name taken from the Dungeons and Dragons books. In the Forgotten Realms series. That's where I got the name. So I really loved the Forgotten Realms series, so I took that name, and that's what we named the camp. And we ended up with probably around 12, 13, 14 people at times coming weekly to our rituals and stuff. But anyway, so I was living with my brother, working these jobs. I did not like his girlfriend. Me and her did not get along. My brother was actually, my dad had a scrap metal business, and it was out in a rural area, more of a rural area, and there was a shop, a big garage like thing, and then a fenced in area where they had different piles of scrap metal, and there was probably 2 acres out there. And my dad had his hunting bus out there. Now remember, I despised my dad. I hated my dad, and always had this thought my whole life that when I was finally old enough and big enough to take care of myself, me and my dad are never going to be right with each other until we go fisticuffs. Now that I can handle myself and I'm not a kid, and he can, push me around and beat me up. So I still hated my dad, but I used him. So I moved into his bus after a while because I didn't get along with my brother Jeff's girlfriend. And so I lived in that bus pretty much all winter there. Me and Jeff were scrapping metal. So, almost daily we go around with the truck and trailer, and we'd have certain spots, auto shops, whatever, where we'd pick up daily or weekly scrap metal and bring it to the shop. There's different piles of different metals out there, and we're using the tools to separate the metals, and this is where me and my brother really started burning each other. I believe he burned me more than him, but I'd come out one day and our huge pile of copper or aluminum had be gone. He had come out and taken it all and brought it in and kept the money. And so we were burning each other. I ended up moving back in with him for a little while. And that's when I met 2 doors down. There was a lady that lived there, older. She was almost 10 years older than me. Now I'm with a woman almost 10 years younger than me. We got with each other. Her name was Nancy. We got with each other. And pretty soon, me and my brother's girlfriend was going at it again. Matter of fact, she ended up trying to take me to court to get a no contact order against me or whatever, because she thought I was threatening and blah, blah, blah. And she ended up not getting it. And but anyway, so I moved in with Nancy. I ended up moving with her, and she was a big pothead. And so again, they were lessening the UAs, or the urinalysis tests, on me a little bit at that time. So I still wasn't using marijuana, but now that I'm in with her, she's smoking weed all the time, and I'm finally like, okay, well, they just popped me on a UA. Let's, let me finally get high.
Sure. And
it'll be good. They ain't gonna come and do nothing. Well, by this time, I had already hooked up with some really bad people in the area, and hanging out with these. It was mostly a couple of guys, Jason and Tommy, and a couple of girls that were goth girls, and so I'm hanging out with these really bad people. I'm in there with her smoking weed, and so I finally do it. Smoke some weed with her one day, and wouldn't you know it, the very next day they come with a surprise UA and pop me. So I went in the bathroom. I filled the cup. They came back, put the tab in it. Well, you're gonna have to come with us and go to jail. You're dirty. So I'm like, well, can I go to the bathroom first? And they're like,
oh,
yeah.
Boy.
So I went to the bathroom, jumped out the window.
I knew it. And they had to have known that too. Come on.
You would think, So at that time, I had this sweet 72 Dodge Charger, cherry red, and jumped in there and took off. I got hold of Jason, said, Jason, I'm going to Florida. You want to come? And then he's like, yeah. So we went to Florida. Obviously, we didn't have no money and stuff, so we're robbing things, robbing people, breaking into places. There was even a time where we were so desperate on our way to Florida, we were staying at this hotel, and there was this really old couple that was like down a floor from us, and it was an outside entrance, down a floor from us and over two, and we'd been kind of watching them. I was like, let's go break in and steal their money, So we were pounding on their door one night, and they're like, who is it? And you're like, cleaning service, and they wouldn't really come to the door, and so we're like, let's break in, and get the money and stuff. But this is one of the times where my old self came back to me, and it's like, man, what happens if things go wrong here? And I'm like, let's get out of here. So we left. So I ended up not doing that. But we went down to Florida and got, it did some stuff. I don't remember how long we were down there. It wasn't too long, not more than a week. And Jason wanted to go back, and we ended up getting pulled over. I had a stupid bumper sticker on the back of my car, and I can't remember exactly what it said, but it had a bad word in it. And we got pulled over, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. But this cop that gets out of the car, big dude, heavy set dude, and he's got boots on. And I'm like, I had this really long tie-dye T-shirt on at the time, and that'll be significant here in a minute. But anyway, he comes out, and I'm like, all right, well, if anything, we can just take off. I'll just take off. This guy can't catch me, So he asked for our license and stuff, and I give it to him, and he just had us sitting by the car, and he calls it in. And as soon as it came back that I'm wanted because I'm escaped off probation.
Mm-hmm.
I went to book, and he just reached out and grabbed hold of that shirt, and it was like a flipping rubber band, man. Boing, got me down on the ground and started beating me in the head. And you're one of them flipping goofballs from the beach, these hippies and blah, 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 boom, 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 boom. And Jason, he just sitting there like, whoa, what's happening? And so I end up going to jail there and get extradited back. And
on a side note,
yeah.
Obviously I'm not in law enforcement, family of law enforcement, but I've never have. I'd venture a guess that bumper stickers have probably gotten more people pulled over.
Oh, it did.
Than you may realize.
He said that it was illegal in their state to have that bumper sticker. And I'm like, what?
Okay.
Oh, so anyway, yeah, I ended up coming back, going to jail, getting revoked off my probation. I did a few months at a camp. I don't remember if it was Gordon or McNaughton or wherever it was. Did a few months there, and so I got back out of prison there, and moved back in with Nancy, but she really didn't want me there because of what had happened.
What? That's weird.
So I ended up hooking up with these bad people again, using the LSD, and shortly after there, because she didn't really want me there, we were still, seeing each other and being with each other. I ended up getting a place in Eau Claire, and it was a pretty big house. We had the whole downstairs portion of it. And these people that I was hanging out with were robbers. And the one guy and one of his friends came over one day and says, well, we have something on your porch. And I'm like, what? And he goes, well, we robbed, there was a school not even 2 blocks away from our house, and they went and robbed the school. So they had like pills and
school supplies.
Not school supplies, just their electronics,
Pencils.
Microphones and
Sure, okay.
TVs. And I'm like, on my porch? Dude, I'm on probation. I just got out of jail.
Right.
Are you kidding me? And in the meantime, this other guy, Tommy, who was actually, he thought, I don't even know the truth of it, he thought he was being chased around by the FBI or whatever. And I'm like, hey, come on over to my house. I'll keep you safe. So he moved in with me. So Tommy moved in with me, and Jason robbed a bunch of stuff and put the stuff on my porch. And one day they came with the surprise, my PO came with a surprise visit, and, kind of questioned all this stuff on the porch. And I had told Jason, I'd get that stuff off my porch. Right. And he didn't. So I got arrested for this stuff on the porch. And, Tommy and them guys, whoever else was there with him that I had staying at the house, I tried getting word to my brother to tell them, guys, get out of my house, man. That stuff's in my house. The cops are going to come. They're going to take it. They're going to do an investigation. And if Tommy's wanted, we need to get him out of there, So he didn't. He stayed, and he ended up getting arrested. And so I don't remember how much it finally came out that Jason stole that stuff, and they let me out of jail. I think it was in there a week or two, and went back. Well, now all of a sudden there's talk that I snitched on them about this stuff. And I'm like, no, you were stupid and kept the stuff in my house when I told you not to.
Right.
And when I told the other guys to get the heck out of my house because I'm in jail now and they're going to come, they still decided to stay there, and they got busted. And it's like, that's your own stupidity.
Yeah, that's on you, man.
But in a drug crazed mind, you always want to blame everybody else. So I don't know, a little while after that happened and I got out of jail, I found out that Tommy and them guys were in jail. And after they got out, a few days after they got out, I got a visit from Tommy and another guy, and he had the audacity to accuse me of snitching on him. And I'm like, listen, man, you were stupid. I told you to get out of my house. You didn't have nothing to do with that stuff that was out on the porch, you know what I'm saying? But I told you guys to get out of this house through my brother, and you decided to stay. It's not on me. That's your own stupidity. Get out of my house. Don't come to me with that kind of crap. Homie, don't play that. So they left. But I knew something was up. I knew something was up. Tommy was a crackhead and not a good dude. Did not have a good background. So I decided I was sleeping in the room that I was using as a temple. It was the biggest room in the house, and my mattress was on the floor because whenever I got up, I put the mattress up. Okay. So the temple area was open. And so Tommy knew, living with me, he knew my sleeping schedule. He knew I slept naked. He knew I slept on the floor. So he knew the layout of the house. I kind of felt something was going to happen. So I took a big old knife and I stuck it under the mattress. And one night I had this other, I don't know, he had some kind of mental, I don't know if he was, he wasn't Down syndrome. I don't know if he was like my son and autistic or what, but he had some mental health issues, and he was living with me. He slept on the couch out in the living room, and I had him there basically just to help him, and he was helping to pay rent. So fast forward a few days after this visit, I'm sleeping. It's probably 2, 3 in the morning, and all of a sudden I get waken up by one of the staffs that I had was about a 4-foot long staff with an ivory skull on the top of it, and I got waken up with that getting cracked down on my head. And as soon, I mean, it didn't take me out or anything, as hard as they hit me with it, but all I know is I remember waking up, reaching my hand under the mattress, pulling out the knife. As I pull a knife out, this guy is coming down on top of me, and I go like this with the knife, and he gets off me. I get up. There's this tiny little bathroom in my bedroom. Like I said, I'm naked. There's a tiny little bit of my bathroom, and so I jump up to head into the bathroom, and someone starts whacking me with something all the way into the bathroom. And I get in the bathroom. This guy whacks me on the head with it. I finally get it out of his hands, and I start whacking him with it. In the meantime, I'm hearing stuff getting shattered and busted out in my house. And then I hear, "Let's get out of here. I'm bleeding." And they finally leave. So here it was Tommy and 2 other dudes that he brought with him and trying to take me out. And so needless to say, I was pretty darn upset. Someone did that to me, especially somebody I took care of, and I knew it was him. So
wait, you knew it was him because you could see him, right?
Well, not really. It was kind of dark. I mean, there was light out in the living room and stuff, but I knew their voices,
Right.
And when he took off, I seen him out in the light, and I knew who it was. So after I got dressed and cleaned up, I went over to one of my friends' house. Another not so good guy, kind of told him what was going on. I called my cousin, another not so good guy, told him what's going on. He said, "Oh, they can't do that to you. We're going to go look for this dude, and we're going to take him out." And our whole plan, this cousin of mine came from Red Wing, I think it was Red Wing, Minnesota, where they have a bunch of mines, old mines and stuff. So we were going to take a guy out and kill him and drop him down in the mines. So we went out 3 different cars looking for him. We knew who he hung with and what his main spots were, and we searched all night and couldn't find him. I was, I got a little scar up on my forehead from that. That was about it, and I had some bruises on me from, they had taken one of the oak bookshelves off one of my bookshelves, and that's what they were whacking me with, on top of getting hit in the head with that staff. But, so long story short, we ended up not finding them. We searched for about 3 days looking for these guys, and didn't come about. I did report it to the police. Matter of fact, when the police came, there was so much. They said there was like 2 pints of blood in the house. There was blood everywhere. I thought that I got him in the side. I was trying to get him in the side or in the head when he came down on me, but evidently what I did is almost cut his thumb off, and he was squirting blood everywhere, and that's the only reason why they didn't stay. So I did report it to the police, and so time goes on. At some point, a couple 3 months later, they finally found him, and I went and actually attested against him in court, and he ended up getting a couple of years for that. But I did not put up with that. Usually, and when we got an issue with somebody out on the streets in this kind of game, you deal with that with each other. But you ain't going to come into my house and do what you did and get away with that. So he ended up getting some time.
Hold on. So what? I'm curious about why calling the police, was that a strategic move, or looking back, that was probably stupid? And the reason I asked that is because you just got finished saying you're gonna go kill the dude, right?
Yeah.
So if you call the police and let them know what happened, and then the guy turns up dead, aren't you going to be the first suspect?
Well, we didn't find him, so he wasn't dead. No,
I know. I'm just saying
because
it's
we would have been the ones doing it. No, I don't know. I
okay.
just had this mindset that we couldn't find him. He's getting away with
Okay.
this. You are
Hey, let the
not going to
cops
get
work for
away
me for
with.
once.
Yeah, you are not going to get away with what you did to me, man, at all.
Okay.
So that was the only time in my life I think I really ever, testified against somebody for something. But man,
Sure.
I was really angry at what he did to me, and
Yeah.
I think that he was going to get away with that. And maybe there was a little bit of, man. I hope they get him before I do, because I really wasn't in that. I mean, I was in that mindset immediately after what he did to me, but after a while, it's like, man, I really don't want to go there.
Yeah. Do you really want to go back to prison? Was that a thought at any point in this? That if I do find
There
him, I kill him.
was.
If I get caught, I don't want to go back to prison. I don't want to be in the hole. I don't want. Ugh.
Nah, not really.
Not really, okay.
Not that part of it. It was just more of what he did to me and got away with.
Sure.
So living in this place. So after that happens, I'm not there too much longer. But anyway, in the meantime, the temple is going good there. We got a bunch of people. I had another guy living with me who was my deacon at this temple, and we were having orgies there and all kinds of stuff. And one of these girls who was a friend of ours, who hung around a lot, we ended up having a threesome with her between me and the deacon in the church, and she ended up telling Nancy, and I was still with Nancy. Kinda. Nancy broke up. She was always breaking up with me and getting back with me. At that time, we were broke up. So she come to my house one day and started snapping on me about it. I'm like, what? What's your problem? You broke up with me. Remember, we're in breakup mode. I don't care. And she, kicked me in the naughty spot, and she was really mad. I'm like, well, so you still like me, huh? And blah, blah, blah. So anyway, just all this. So I end up, I said, well, how did you find out? She goes, well, blah, blah told me. And so one night I went to her place with a pound of sugar and poured all that right down her gas tank. And yeah, you don't do that stuff to me and not get away with it. Again, I wasn't too much of a confrontational guy, but if you burn me one way or another, I'm going to get you back. That's how my life was. So after this is all happening, I finally decided to move out of that place. I had done a roof job for somebody up in Minnesota, found a 1974 Dodge Charger. I bought it and came back and started living in my car. And I'm like, you know what? This way I'll have more money for drugs anyway, and nobody can break in and beat me down and all this nonsense. So I'm living in the car, and maybe this is where I'll kind of stop, because I think we're getting towards the end of our time.
Yep, sure.
So I'm living in my car. Now, remember, I said before that other than my mother, the only thing I loved in life was animals. And I wouldn't sacrifice animals. I wouldn't hurt animals. And I finally got my dream job. I found out the Chippewa County Humane Association was hiring. I went and applied, and I got the job. Now, Tom and Laura Pettis were running the place at the time. There was a house right on the property that they were managing, and they lived in there with their 4 kids. So they knew I was living out of my car and homeless, and asked me if I wanted to stay with them. And I'm like, sure. So they moved me upstairs with their, at the time, 16-year-old son, Eric. Now remember him, because he'll come into the picture later, not in the next couple of weeks, but later. So I met Eric. He was 16, and I ended up turning Eric onto marijuana, and he became a pothead. So here I am up in their room. And Laura, I'm doing some weed with her and stuff, and I'm growing marijuana up in their bedroom, and or the bedroom with Eric. And so anyway, at one point we get to the point where we need some help. By that time, it was a few months. I was co-manager, and we went out to try to hire somebody to help part-time. And through this process, I was the one that was meeting with the people and doing the interviews. And this super hot blonde woman named Kathy came in, and I'm like, oh, look at that, And come to find out after the interview, she was also into the occult, and she was into tarot cards and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, where have you been all my life?
What are the odds?
Yeah. So I'm like, you are hired. And so not only hired, and after I got to know her a little bit, it was like I found out she was getting a divorce from her husband, with this big 6 foot something, 200 and some pound Texan guy that was, beating her and being nasty to her all the time. And she was leaving him. So we ended up getting together, and we, started doing things a lot and hanging out together a lot. And we were a couple. At that time, I ended up using my dad. He had a trailer home in Lake Wissota, and he wasn't living in it or nothing. I'm like, hey, can we rent that from you? And he's like, well, there's got to be a lot of rules and this and that, and I had to sit down and he wrote out all the rules and I had to sign it. And so we moved in together in there. And this is really where because she was into drugs too. This is really when the crack and all the harder drugs were just every day and often. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, she had just gotten a settlement from an accident she had gotten into of $11,000, and she handed that over to me and said, "This is ours." And so yeah, from there on, we kind of went on a binge. I got crazier and crazier. I was nuts over this woman. She became my property, and her ex would not leave her alone. So there was some real anger starting to build up against this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop right there, and we'll get into the end of that and what happened as a result of that the next time that we meet up. But this is really probably the lowest in my life as far as the crazed anger and vengeance and all that. There was another area in my life where it was the lowest as far as lows and wanting to commit suicide and all that. But this is where I was just crazed. I was so out of my mind that, as we'll talk about next time, there were some things. I lost a car. I parked it somewhere and forgot where it was, called it in, and just to come to find out it was where I parked it, and I don't remember parking it there. But that's how bad my mind was from the drugs and craziness over what was going on in this relationship, this three-way love triangle that was going on. So that's where we'll leave it today.
Wait, so a three-way love? Okay, yeah. Well, we'll have to pick that up next week, because I think if I ask any questions there, we're not going to stop talking
it's gonna
about it.
Yeah,
right. So that's literally, I'm going to remember that. We're starting off next episode with, we left off with three-way love triangle. So this, going back to, at the end, we always kind of want to just, what's the takeaway here, or I wouldn't say a lesson, but and I think we discussed, I think it was literally last show, that it seems to be the common theme, the people that you hang around with. Is there anything that was different this time around, or this part of your life, or is it still that same thing? And it sounds like you're using a lot of people. I wrote that down several times. Using a lot of people, but at times it seems like things are getting better for you, which is technically worse. Getting $11,000. That's not good for you.
Right, not at all.
But it's interesting that you found a woman. She's hot. She's had money. She's into the same things you're into. And yet, isn't that interesting? That's actually making everything worse, even though that's everything that you wanted.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? Does that remind you? I mean, who does that typically in your life? Gives you everything that you want, but really it's just taking you down a bad path.
Well, unfortunately, this is the all too common. I'm not even going to put a percent on it, but more often than not, this is the problem with most men and women who are coming out of jail or prison or addictions, is that they go right back to the same people they meet, or even if they don't, they meet someone they really, really, really like, only to come to find out that they're involved in the stuff. And of course, what are you going to do? That's all you know. So you get right back into the stuff with them, regardless of the intent that you had to not do that anymore. But this is one of probably the most common problems with men and women getting out of prison, is they keep going back to the same people and the same lifestyle, the same situations, and even if it isn't right away. I work with plenty of people who are coming out of jail, prison, and addictions. And, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, they'll have good, clean time in, and all of a sudden, boom, they'll meet somebody and move in with them or get with them, and they're in that lifestyle. And instead of finding out about that and being like, oop, gotta go, see you later, nope, they are pulled and sucked right in because that's what they know. And, oh my gosh, here's somebody that I really like now, and let's do this.
I've heard that about rehabilitation centers or rehab for drugs or alcohol or whatever. I've heard that. Don't know this to be true, but I've heard that when you're there, it's great. But it's really a lot of people. I've heard that a lot of people kind of look at that more as a detox. And the reason for that is it's easy to be clean and sober when you're around this environment. Mm-hmm. But then when you leave and you get back out, it's so difficult because that's not real world living. I mean, if you could just live in rehab, Great.
Yeah.
I'll be clean the rest of my life. But you
Right.
can't live in rehab. And that always seems, I know you've talked about that before, that's an issue there of where do they go when they get back out, and that you have to be really careful. But that is another thing that you always bring up is
Yeah.
the people that are around you. But it's got to be kind of, accepting again. Oh, well, at least these people, accept me again, and at least I'm familiar with this stuff.
Yeah.
Part of me feels badly, right? I mean, just
Yeah.
the human side of it. It's like, man, you were clean for so long, and then you hooked up with this one person or group, and they kind of sucked you back in. It's a you problem. You did it. It's your choice.
Yep.
But I still feel badly because they were doing so well.
Yep. Yeah, and even as you saw in today's episode, it's. I mean, this is how stupid we are as criminals, right? I mean, I'm on probation, or actually, I was on parole, and I got drug dealers living with me and people robbing places and putting it in my house, and it's like, yeah, come on, stay with me, just stay with me. You just don't think about the stuff when you're in the stuff, man. It's just that simple.
That is true. I look back at the dumb things I've done in my life, and I don't try to reconcile it. Or don't even say, boy, what was I thinking? I literally ask myself, what was I thinking? Like, I don't remember having a conscious thought about should I or shouldn't I? Or if I did that, what are the consequences? Like, I don't remember having those thoughts in my head. Now, as an adult, I certainly do.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I didn't. Like, what was I thinking? I mean, actually, what was I thinking when I was doing these things? And I can't remember. Maybe I just wasn't thinking at all.
Yeah, even now, I really have to be careful. I have friends, obviously. I don't live with or hang out with the people that are into the bad stuff, but I minister to them and I help them. But I still have to be really careful because the one thing I have to always keep in my mind is if I'm working with somebody who's an addict and they have something on them and they need to ride somewhere and I bring them and we get pulled over and they get caught, guess who's going back to prison? Me. Because that stuff's in my car. So I really have to keep that in mind when I'm working with individuals now, as to where before I wouldn't have given it a second thought. But now,
last thing I'll leave you with this is a question. Do you've been, how long have you been, I don't know what it's referred to as, clean or sober? I'm not sure which one is the correct way to say it.
Yeah, I've been drug-free for 13 years.
13 years. But do you ever you're around this stuff. I mean, not like on a daily basis anymore, right?
No,
but you're still around. I mean, do you get tempted?
Yeah, I'm not really, I can't say other than maybe less than a half a dozen times in the 12 years I've been out that I've actually seen, meth or pipes or pot or whatever. I mean, you smell dope everywhere now, but those types of things, I've only seen them less than 6 times in 12 years. But people that I work with, at least probably once a week, I'm with somebody that's tweaking out on meth and talking to them and all that. That does not, I mean, just seeing that makes me even more adverse to it. I'm like, man, I was like that. I was no way.
Sure.
Seeing the drug, yes. Even after 13 years of being drug free, I still think about using meth and I still think about smoking weed. I'm not going to lie about it. Every now and then it's on my mind, like, man, I wish the Lord didn't have anything against that and it was legal, But the one thing that keeps me from that, not only working with these people and seeing how they are and what it does to them, is just looking back on my life and that not only outside of the crack and all that other stuff, just a couple of years I was on meth and what it did to me in that lifestyle. I'd never go back to that just because of that. But is the desire to use still there? Yes,
it is.
Yes.
And sorry, I have another question now because you kind of brought this up. You had said about Lord, I wish this was legal and it was kind of allowed or whatever. Just out of curiosity, if marijuana gets legalized, if it was legalized, would you do it?
No.
Because
marijuana was something that I've always done. Every day, even on meth, even though it didn't do nothing to me, I still smoked weed all the time. I was a pothead, and I would still love to get high. But number one, I know what it does to me. It makes me a lazy dude, and I would never get anything done. And I know that I would never be able to stop. I would always want it, and therefore my life would just go right downhill again because So no, I would never go back to it, even if it was legalized, even if it was okay for me on probation to do it. If everything about it was okay and the Lord said it was okay, I still wouldn't do it because I know what it does to me.
All right, Brian, thanks so much. This is a great episode. Looking forward to next week's.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.